What if I told you? The more you love her, the faster she walks away. You give your time, you give your heart, you give everything, hoping that one day she'll see how much you care, but instead, she pulls back, she grows distant. And you sit there wondering, what did I do wrong? You've been kind, you've been honest, you've been available, and yet, somehow it feels like none of it was enough. Have you ever stared at your phone, waiting for a message that never comes? Have you ever lowered your voice, softened your needs just to keep someone from leaving, and still, they left if you've been there? This video might change everything, because maybe it wasn't about you being too much. Maybe you were never meant to chase. There's a moment in every man's life where he realizes love isn't lost in one big heartbreak. It's lost in 1,000 small ways, every time he forgets his worth just to be chosen. But there's a different path. A quieter one, one where you stop proving and start becoming. And the moment you step on that path, everything changes. So if you're still here, listening, thank you, I hope you'll stay with me. What comes next might just be the reminder you've been needing all along. It started on a Thursday. Alex sat alone on the balcony of his apartment, watching the city breathe without him. The cars moved, the lights changed, the world didn't pause. But something inside him had stopped. He had just been left by someone he thought he'd build a life with. No screaming, no slamming doors, just a quiet, tired, I don't feel it anymore. He nodded, said he understood, but truth was, he didn't. For weeks he had given everything, texted first, showed up, bought flowers, made time, bit his tongue when she got cold, apologized when things weren't even his fault, told himself, this is how love works. You give, but in the end, she walked away. And now all that remained was silence, not just from her, but inside him. Have you ever given so much that you forgot where you started? He used to be so confident, calm, quietly proud. But lately he couldn't recognize the man in the mirror. His friends said, you're too available. The internet said, be alpha. But no advice helped when 2M came, and all you had was an empty bed and a mind that wouldn't stop replaying the last conversation. He kept asking himself, what did I do wrong? And beneath that question, a deeper one, was I ever enough? This wasn't just about one woman, this was about a pattern, a cycle, one that started long before her, a need to be chosen, a fear of being left, a hunger to be seen. Alex didn't want revenge, he didn't want to hate, he just wanted to understand. And that's when something shifted. One night, instead of reaching for his phone, he sat with the silence, he let it burn. He didn't chase, he didn't explain, he didn't beg, he just felt it, the hollow ache of being too much and never enough at the same time. He knew he couldn't keep living like this, loving like this, losing like this. Something had to change. And not just on the outside, not the haircut or the gym routine or another motivational quote on a story. He needed to go deeper, to find the part of him that kept giving himself away, and ask it why. Because deep down, Alex sensed a truth most men ignore. Love isn't supposed to hurt like this, and maybe love wasn't what he thought it was. The wind moved through the trees, a car horn echoed far below. And for the first time in weeks, Alex didn't flinch, he just sat there, breathing, not waiting for her to come back, not hoping for a message, just breathing. Something had broken, but in that brokenness, something else began, not louder, not stronger, quieter, still. Real, and that was the beginning. The moment he stopped needing her was the moment she started noticing him again. Not with words, not with texts, but with pauses, with glances, with silence that lingered longer than before. It confused Alex, because just weeks ago he was the one chasing, hoping, shrinking. And now, without effort, without trying, something had shifted. He didn't say much, didn't ask how she was, didn't reach out. And suddenly she did. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't a game, it was something deeper, a law he had never understood but had always been living under. The more you need someone, the more power they hold over you. And power isn't something people give back freely. Alex remembered something his grandfather once said, needing is the fastest way to forget who you are. Back then, he didn't get it. Now, it felt like the truest sentence he'd ever heard. He looked back at all the times he bent his own needs, swallowed his pride, begged in whispers, not because she asked him to, but because he didn't believe he had value unless someone else confirmed it. And that's the real paradox. We think love will save us, that being chosen will make us whole. But real power begins when you stop needing to be chosen. You stop being a beggar at someone else's emotional table. You become the source, the stillness. It's not that he stopped caring, it's that he stopped needing, and that changed everything. There's a difference between wanting someone and needing them to feel okay. Most men don't know that difference. Alex didn't either. Until the pain of needing became louder than the joy of being with her, he started asking himself, if she left, would I still be me? And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the answer. He realized, love without freedom isn't love, it's control. It's addiction. It's waiting for someone to text you back just so your heart can beat again. He was done living like that. And so he stopped performing, he stopped checking if she viewed his stories. He stopped pretending he was okay just to keep the peace. And you know what happened? He felt peace, real peace. Because for once, he was choosing himself. The funny thing is, the moment you stop needing someone, they start wondering who you are without them. And that mystery, that quiet strength, it's magnetic. She texted him days later. Hey, just thinking about you. And he smiled, not because she came back, but because for the first time he didn't need her to. If you've ever lost yourself in the hope that someone might finally choose you, I see you. And if you're ready to stop waiting and start becoming, you're not alone. Because something powerful happens when you walk away from the noise and into your own silence. And in that silence, the world begins to listen. It was a rainy morning when Alex looked into the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back, not because he looked broken, but because he looked empty, not angry, not sad, just missing. He'd spent so long becoming who others wanted that he forgot who he really was. That's when he remembered something from a podcast, an idea that haunted him since. Every man has a shadow, a side we hide, wounds we bury, fears we deny. And if we don't face it, someone else will find it, usually the person we love. Alex had never thought of himself as afraid, but deep down he was terrified, terrified of abandonment, of being forgotten, of never being enough. And that fear, it shaped everything. It made him text too much, apologize too quickly, compromise too often, not out of love, but out of fear that if he didn't, he'd be left again. So he started digging. He sat in silence, he journaled. He asked the hard questions. What was he really scared of? The answer came slowly. He wasn't afraid of losing her. He was afraid that without her, he'd have to face the parts of himself he'd been running from, the lonely boy who never felt seen, the teenager who was always too quiet, too sensitive, too much, the man who smiled on the outside and ached on the inside. He began to write letters he never sent, letters to his younger self, letters to the girls who ghosted him. Letters to the mother who never said, I'm proud of you. And somewhere in those unsent words, he began to breathe again, not louder, but deeper. He cried once, then twice, then not at all, because the tears weren't weakness, they were release. He realized the shadow isn't the enemy, it's a map to the places he needed to visit, accept, and reclaim. When someone used to ask about his past, he'd freeze, dodge the question, laugh it off. Now, he looked them in the eye. Yes, I've been left. Yes, I've felt not enough. Yes, I've begged before. But now it's different because when you've faced your darkness, no one can use it against you. You stop hiding, you stop performing, you simply are, and that is freedom. So if someone ever tries to test your wounds again, let them. Because if you've done the work, there's nothing left to fear, just strength wrapped in truth. If you've been hiding from yourself, maybe it's time to come home. Not to her, to you. Because no woman can love you deeper than you're willing to love your own shadow. There was a night when everything boiled over. Alex was at a small dinner gathering, soft music, dim lights, a few friends, nothing dramatic, until she showed up, not the ex, but someone new, someone with sharp eyes and quicker words. She didn't do anything cruel, she just tested him. She made a subtle jab about his job, questioned one of his opinions, laughed a little too loud at someone else's joke when he spoke. And the old Alex, he would have reacted, he would have defended himself, tried to impress, maybe even gotten flustered and left early. But this time, he didn't. He stayed calm, steady, unmoved. He smiled slightly, took a sip of water, Let the silence speak for him. She blinked, tilted her head. And for the rest of the night she watched him, not because he was loud, but because he was. Alex had learned something powerful. Most people test you not with logic, but with energy, with chaos, with emotion. And if they can pull you into that storm, they lead. But if you stay calm, you lead. Stillness, he discovered, is not weakness. It's dominance without aggression, strength without noise. He'd spent years thinking strength meant reacting faster, speaking sharper, being louder. But now he knew better. A real man doesn't prove his calm, he becomes it. And it changes the room. Later that night, a friend asked him how he stayed so unbothered. Alex simply said, "Not everything needs my reaction." Because reaction is surrender. When you react, you give away your center, you become the effect, not the cause. He didn't always succeed. Some days he still flinched, still overthought, but now he practiced. And every time he chose stillness over reaction, he reclaimed a piece of himself. There's a quiet kind of power in not being moved, not by her tone, not by her silence, not even by her beauty, just still, present, unshaken. And ironically, that's when they lean in. When you're no longer a puppet pulled by emotion, you become the frame they adjust themselves to. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, breathe. Let silence answer for you. Because in a world that shouts, the man who whispers is remembered. If you've ever lost your center trying to stay connected, I hope you remember this. You don't need to match her emotion to show your heart. You just need to hold your ground so she knows where to find it. Sometimes the most attractive thing you can do is nothing. And in that nothingness, everything shifts. It happened at the gym. Alex was mid-rep, focused, silent, sweat dripping from his temple. His phone buzzed on the bench beside him. Twice. He didn't check it. Not because he didn't care, but because he had learned some things deserve all of you. And in that moment, it wasn't her, it was him. That day, something deeper settled inside him. A new kind of strength, not just muscle, not just discipline, but control. He was no longer trying to impress anyone, not women, not friends, not even the mirror. He was becoming someone he could trust. And that changed everything. He used to think power was about being tough, unsmiling, distant. But then he learned about presence, about the man who could be kind but unshakable, the one who could smile and still be dangerous, because true strength isn't loud. It's the man who could break the room but chooses not to, the man who could walk away but stays rooted by choice. Alex wasn't born that man. He built it through silence, through routine, through learning to feel the fire in him and not let it spill. He used to explode when he felt challenged. He thought anger proved strength, but all it did was prove instability. Now, he let tension live in his body without reacting to it. He was calm at the surface but sharp underneath. And people could feel it. A girl he dated once told him, "You feel contained, like you're holding something powerful." He didn't deny it because he was. There's a difference between being nice and being good. Nice is approval-seeking, easily controlled, afraid to offend. Good is different. Good is power, refined, danger, tamed, fire with a direction. He no longer raised his voice to be heard. He didn't need to dominate to command respect. He simply was a presence. A man who walked into a room and didn't have to perform because his stillness did the speaking. And yes, women noticed, not because he played games, but because women feel edges. They sense what a man is capable of even when he's quiet, especially when he's quiet. Alex didn't need to flash it. Didn't need to prove it, he just lived it, and that made all the difference. If you've ever felt torn between being soft and being strong, maybe the answer isn't choosing, maybe it's learning to be both, to hold the fire without letting it burn everything down. Because the man who can destroy but chooses not to, he's not just strong, he's unforgettable. There was a time when Alex explained everything. Why he didn't text back right away, why he needed space. Why he chose himself in moments she expected him to fold. He thought explaining was kind, thought clarity would be met with understanding. But instead, it always felt like shrinking. He noticed a pattern. The more he explained, the less she listened. The more he tried to be understood, the less she respected his silence. And that's when it clicked. A man in control doesn't explain, he embodies. He doesn't defend his choices, he lives them. It wasn't about being cold. It was about being clear, so the next time she asked, "Why didn't you answer my message yesterday?" He didn't unravel, he didn't overjustify, he simply said, "I was focused." And he let the silence hold. That silence, it said more than a paragraph ever could, because power isn't in words, it's in energy. And when a man stands in his truth without flinching, people lean in. They feel something rare. Alex had once believed that people owed him understanding. Now he knew better. People don't always deserve your backstory. Sometimes your peace is the only explanation you need. He stopped filling in awkward silences, stopped softening his voice just to seem agreeable. He practiced letting the moment breathe, even when it got tense. Even when her eyes narrowed or her tone shifted, he stayed with the stillness, because mystery is magnetic, and silence is a mirror. It forces others to face their own discomfort. She once told him, "You make me feel like I'm talking to someone who already knows who he is." He didn't answer, he just smiled, because that's the thing: when you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving people room to redefine you, you stop asking for permission to be who you are, you stop negotiating your values just to be liked. And in that space, you reclaim your presence. The man who speaks little, but means every word, he becomes unforgettable. And not because he's loud, but because he doesn't need to be. If you've ever caught yourself over-explaining just to be heard, just to feel safe, maybe this is your permission to stop, to say less, to trust more, to let silence be your edge. Because the more grounded you are in who you are, the less you owe anyone an explanation. And when the world expects noise, presence becomes your loudest reply. It was subtle at first, a glance from across the cafe, a lingering smile in the elevator, a text from someone he hadn't spoken to in months. Alex noticed something strange happening. The less he chased, the more the world leaned in. He wasn't playing games. He wasn't cold or distant. He was just focused on himself, on his mission, on building something real. He stopped performing, stopped posting to be noticed, stopped checking who watched his stories. He started showing up for his goals: morning workouts, deep work, long walks without his phone. He had a schedule, a purpose, a pulse, and women noticed, but not in the way he used to hope for. This wasn't the kind of attention that came from effort. It came from energy, from presence, from a man who was no longer signaling, "Please see me," but radiating, "I already see myself." Alex had spent years trying to be chosen, changing himself to be more interesting, trying to impress, adjusting his voice, his preferences, even his dreams. And still, he was left. Now, he didn't chase beauty, he built gravity, and gravity pulls. It's quiet, it's consistent, it doesn't beg, it just is. He once believed he needed to do more to be noticed. Now he understood it was about becoming someone that couldn't be ignored. And here's the irony: when you stop chasing women, they start chasing your energy, not because you ignore them, but because your attention is no longer cheap. It's sacred. It's earned. He walked into rooms differently now, not with arrogance, but with alignment. His posture said, "I'm not here to impress." His stillness said, "I know who I am." And his silence said everything else. People feel that, and the right ones rise to meet it. If you've ever exhausted yourself trying to be enough for someone, maybe it's time to stop performing, to stop selling pieces of yourself for moments of validation, and instead become the man whose presence speaks before he does. Because when you stop chasing, you don't lose love, you just stop renting it and start building a life so full, others want to be part of it. Her name was Lee. They met at a quiet bookstore, both reaching for the same copy of a worn Rilke collection. She laughed, he smiled. And for the first time in months, Alex felt something stir, not obsession, not urgency, just interest. They talked, walked, shared stories under soft cafe lights and slow jazz. But he was different now. He didn't rush to impress, didn't fill every silence, didn't ask where this was going. He just let it breathe. And that's when it began, the testing: not overt, not cruel, just subtle shifts. She showed up late once, didn't apologize, he didn't flinch. She went quiet for a day, replied with short texts. He stayed steady. Then one night she questioned his tone. You don't seem very emotionally available." The old Alex would have spiraled, tried to explain, to prove, to fix. But not this time. He just listened and said calmly, "I'm here, I'm grounded, and I don't need to be dramatic to be real." She looked at him for a long moment, then softened, because she felt it too, the difference between reaction and response, between chaos and center. She was used to men chasing, pleasing, bending. But Alex didn't bend. Not because he was trying to win, but because he had nothing to prove. He knew women test, not because they're manipulative, but because they want to feel your edges, to know if you'll break or hold. And every time she pressed a little harder and he stayed calm, something shifted in her. She started leaning in, not because he chased, but because he didn't, because he had nothing to hide and nothing to lose. She once said, "You feel like a storm that doesn't need to roar." He smiled, because that's exactly what he had become, still, unshaken, present. He realized something else, too. When a woman tests you, it's not about her, it's about whether you'll abandon yourself to gain approval. And if you don't, you pass not her test, but yours. If you've ever felt pushed just to see how much you'd bend, maybe it's time to stop bending, to hold still, to breathe deeper, to show with your calm that you are not here to be shaken. Because the man who doesn't panic becomes the place others find safety in. And in a world full of storms, he becomes the anchor. Alex stood at the edge of the lake one morning, watching the mist roll off the surface like a secret slowly letting go. He wasn't thinking about Lee or any woman. He was thinking about himself, about who he used to be and who he had become. There was a time when being liked meant everything. He'd bend his truth just to keep someone smiling. Say yes when he wanted to say no. Laugh when he felt small, shrink when he should have stood tall, all for a moment of approval that never lasted. Because being liked is easy, and being liked is forgettable. But being respected, that stays. Respect doesn't come from charm or flattery or trying to please. It comes from presence, from boundaries, from living your truth, even when it costs you something. Alex had stopped trying to be liked, and it changed everything. He used to obsess over texts, emojis, responses. Now he let silence speak. He used to twist himself to fit their expectations. Now he invited them to meet him where he stood. He no longer asked, "Do they like me?" He asked, "Do they respect the way I live?" Because the man who chases being liked will say anything to avoid rejection. But the man who commands respect says what needs to be said, even if it's not received well. That's the difference. One fears disapproval, the other fears dishonesty. He once had a date tell him, "You're hard to figure out." He smiled. "That's because I'm not performing." And she leaned in, not because he was mysterious, but because he was real. There's something unforgettable about a man who stays rooted while others bend. Something rare about someone who values peace over approval. Alex wasn't unkind. He was just done shrinking. He no longer needed to be understood by everyone. Just aligned with himself. He didn't want a room full of admirers. He wanted to walk into a room, say little, and have the right people feel something shift. Because when you carry self-respect like armor, you don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't have to chase attention. You simply stand. And those who see it stay. If you've spent your life trying to be liked, maybe it's time to ask a better question. Do I respect the man I've become? Because the truth is being liked fades, but respect, that echoes. And the man who chooses it, he becomes the one they never forget. There was no final moment, no dramatic goodbye, no message that changed everything. Just a morning, quiet, still, where Alex woke up and felt different, not stronger, not colder, just whole. He brewed his coffee, stood by the window, and watched the light spill across the city. He wasn't waiting anymore. Not for an apology, not for closure, not for someone to finally see his worth, because he had already seen it in himself. And that changed everything. This wasn't about becoming untouchable. It was about becoming unshakable. A man who doesn't seek control but has mastered his own, who doesn't chase the crown because he knows he is the crown. There was a time when Alex needed others to complete him. Now he builds his own world, a world of focus, of quiet discipline, of inner storms that no longer need to be calmed by someone else's presence. And in that world, people are welcome, but they are not the center. He's no longer afraid of being alone, because alone doesn't mean empty. Alone means powerful when you're aligned. The kind of power that doesn't raise its voice, it just walks in truth. He meets women now, talks, connects, but never loses himself, because he knows if someone fits his life, they'll walk beside him. If not, they won't. But he never stops walking. He once thought love was about holding on. Now he knows it's about choosing who walks with you, without begging, without chasing, without shrinking. He lives with clarity now, speaks with intention, and moves with the calm of someone who's no longer proving anything. He knows what he brings. He knows what he deserves. And he knows the difference between being seen and being truly known. So if you've been waiting for someone to come save you, they won't, but maybe that's the gift. Because no one can save you better than the man you become when you stop waiting. You don't need her to understand you. You don't need the past to make sense. You don't need another chance to rewrite the ending. You just need the courage to begin walking your own story, one step, one truth, one breath at a time, and the world, it will feel you. Not because you shouted, but because you finally became real. SEO and thumbnail. White heavy checkmark. Here's the full SEO optimization plus thumbnail prompt for your 30-minute video in English. Direct hit SEO optimization pushpin title. Stop chasing her. Become the man she can't ignore. Memo description SEO friendly. You've been told to be nice, to chase, to prove yourself. But the truth is, power in love doesn't come from being liked, it comes from becoming unshakable. This video takes you on a journey from emotional slavery to quiet strength. Stop reacting. Start leading. Discover the rules that make you unforgettable. Magnifying glass tilted right hashtags. Masculine energy relationships, self-respect, stop chasing, quiet strength, emotional power, men's growth, stoic mindset, key SEO keywords. 3-tiered tier 1. Masculine mindset, relationship advice, emotional power tier 2. Stop chasing women, how to be respected, emotional control in love tier 3. Matic YouTube thumbnail in a 16:9 ratio. The scene should include multiple male and female characters in a dramatic setting. In the center, show a man, late 20s, American, confident, stoic, standing still while everyone around him is reacting emotionally. Some crying, some angry, some chasing. His facial expression must show calm strength and deep control. Add a bold subtitle text overlay in English. You are the prize. Style the thumbnail with high contrast, rich red-toned background, and bold emotional lighting to enhance drama. Faces should clearly express emotion, with sharp visual separation between the calm man and the chaotic crowd. Design should feel intense and emotionally charged, instantly capturing the viewer's attention. Ensure subtitle text is clear, large, and prominent, contrasting well with the red tones. Avoid clutter. Aim for a modern, edgy, motivational YouTube aesthetic that speaks to men seeking identity and power. Let me know if you want a visual example, caption template, or title A/B test ideas to boost CTR.